Hi, everyone. For this session, we'll be sharing our cloud migration journey in progress with planning for an EPM cloud migration in times of COVID-19. Questions are definitely welcome. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. This is Josie Manzano-Stettler from interRel Consulting, and I'm co-presenting with Saraj Vamaravelli from Twitter.
Hey guys, this is Faraj. I'm a solution architect here at Twitter for all the EPM suite of applications. So I've been in EPM space for the past 10 years, implementing different EPM projects and also supporting them. So yeah, I'm happy to co-present with Josie the Twitter cloud migration plan today. Yeah, thank you, Josie.
Thanks, Suraj. And briefly about myself, I am the planning practice director with interRel, and I've been living and breathing EPM or Oracle EPM for nearly 20 years, both as a power user and admin from industry and as an implementer and solutions architect for almost 14 years. interRel is a 5-time EPM and Analytics Partner of the Year. Oops, I skipped one, sorry. All right. So just quickly, we wanted to mention, we at interRel love to share knowledge, and we have a loaded webcast agenda for the next couple of months. In November, we have tools and best practices, and in December is demo month. So check it out at interrel.com/updates for a complete schedule. So in case you haven't heard of Twitter, Suraj will enlighten you.
Sure. I think like you guys have already know what Twitter is. Like I just do a background. Like Twitter is an American microblogging site where you post tweets and then so like retweets and everything whatnot. So the annual revenue for Twitter is around 3.46 billion for 2019, and we are headquartered in San Francisco, California. So one of the fun fact I generally mention it along with in presentations is like it's each day worth of tweets will be 10 million page book. So each day of worth of tweets, it's not like each month, but each day would be a 10 million page of books at Twitter. So yep, that's the amount of data we are dealing with every day. So yeah, next slide. So today we're going to talk about our migration plan to cloud. So how we are taking the existing applications, like what's the current state, what exactly are we doing with the current state, and what exactly we are trying to implement. So I'm going to give you a background of what exactly the current state right now at Twitter is. So we have on-prem 11.1.2 for planning and budgeting for all our budgeting needs and forecasting. So we recently moved to Arts in 2019, and it's the first EPM product in cloud for Twitter. So, and we use Oracle EBS inbuilt functionality for ERP and also for consolidation. We don't have HFM or any consolidation applications in EPM. Right now, everything is done in Oracle directly. And so there is no tool for metadata management. We have manual process across all the systems. There is no workflow process for metadata management. All the approvals or any changes are done through Jira's. Yep. Next slide. So the current state, right now we have around 250 users. So both for arts and planning, all the current EPM applications are hosted on external servers provided by third-party vendor, so which require access through virtual machines and VPN. So we have a problem with latency and speed is a big problem. Oracle EBS is currently used as our ERP, and it feeds the planning applications with monthly actuals and depreciation projections for forecasting. So Arts, as I mentioned before, like we went live in November 19, and we use that for reconciliation purpose. So consolidation and close are done in Oracle EBS. We use like age-old functionality of FSG reports. They are downloaded into Excel for financial reporting. So we use on-prem FDME for integrations between the HR systems, Oracle EBS to on-prem Hyperion Planning applications. So Cloud DM is used to integrate the data from Oracle EBS to Arts. So Twitter does quarterly forecast and a 3-year planning in the current on-prem Hyperion planning applications. So workforce planning is done at individual employee level, and Workday and other HR systems feeds the workforce cube. So all the metadata across finance systems is managed manually in the respective systems. There is no central repository for the metadata. Yep, next slide. So as you can see, the Workday feeds the Workforce Cube. We have a custom Workforce BSO for headcount planning. So we use Consolidated Cube, which is our FinPlan cube for all the expenses, P&L and balance sheets. We have a custom CapEx cube for budgeting and actuals for CapEx expenditure for assets and lease. So sales, there's a different cube called sales, which we use for the sales analytics, which uses the data from EPS and also from a different sales system called Vertica. And we have ASO cubes, couple of ASO cubes. The GL report is basically a replica of FinPlan cube, but it does have additional dimensions in it for the reporting functionality. So we do have a vendor cube, which is used to do a cost analysis based on vendor. So the budgeting process is using a bottom-up approach. FDME is used to integrate between various sources, but is manual process. There are no adapters. So data from Workday is pushed to relation data warehouse, RDBMS. It stores all the HR data. So headcount data is pushed from HRDW data into the workforce cube. And then the consolidated headcount at region and cost center is pushed into the FinPlan cube. Yep. Next slide, Josie. So why are we moving to cloud? Like, what are the current challenges and what we are trying to do with the new cloud? So this is like, so current, what we have right now is like everything is manual reporting. So disconnect and management reporting. So each system has their own reporting. We don't have a common reporting across all the systems. So Oracle uses FSG reports, and then we use SmartView, just Excel reports. So, and the second is data mismatch, where like, so there are different systems which host the revenue data. So we don't have a common single source of truth for the revenue data, and then we have different reporting on top of the revenue. So they have different cuts of data, like they look at different way. So that's one thing which we're trying to resolve, or what we're trying to solve. So consolidations. So when coming to the consolidations are developed 7 years ago in EBS with the standard EBS functionality. So each consolidation takes around 4 to 5 hours to run, and additional time for manual validations. So generally, Twitter closes the books on 8th or 10th day, which is abnormal. So, but yeah, so that's what it is. So no workflow for so no account hierarchies in Oracle, so we don't have any account hierarchies. So P&L and balance sheets are everything managed in FSG reports. Any changes to the accounts need to be manually adjusted in the FSG reports. So and manual metadata management. So everything is managed in individual applications. We do have HR systems which needs the metadata from the EPM systems, which is not there right now. Everything is managed in systems. It has to be done in Hyperion, it has to be done in Oracle, and it has to be done in the downstream systems. So an inconsistent coding across systems. So we, as I mentioned, like all the consolidation is done in Oracle. So obviously, like SQL packages are used for the consolidation. So we have something called Cloud IO, so where it runs on top of Oracle. So there we use SQL for the reports. And again, FSG is a different setup. And when coming to the Hyperion planning, we do use Essbase calculation scripts and business tools. So we do have inconsistent coding across different systems. Yeah, next slide, Josie. So as part of the cloud migration, so there are two initiatives going on parallelly at Twitter. One is our EBS upgrade, and the other one is the management reporting, so all the cloud migration and new applications that we are building right now. So EBS is just like we are not upgrading to cloud or anything. It's basically still on-prem, and then we are doing a technical in place upgrade from EBS 12, 12.1.3 to 12.2.9 to just like extend our Oracle support. Because we are doing that, like we are also upgrading our backend databases from 12c to 19c, as our servers are hosted by a third party. So we are also like upgrading our servers, our Unix servers from OLE 5 to OLE 7. Apart from that, we are also doing chart of account cleanup. So I'll talk about the chart of account cleanup in later slides. But so that's one more thing that we are doing. So there is no business transformation involved on the ERP. It's just like lift and shift with uh, uh, the server upgrades. And we're trying to retrofit some of the RISE components back from the old version to the new version. So when coming to the EPM cloud migration, so we are trying to migrate the existing on-prem applications to cloud with a bit of redesign. So we're not saying like we're just gonna take everything from the cloud and put it in so on-prem and put it in the cloud. We are doing some redesign on our current EPM applications, planning applications. So chart of accounts, because anyways we are cleaning up the chart of accounts, we want to do it before even migrating to cloud so that it is much cleaner. And data governance and metadata management, as I mentioned before, everything is done in Jira, so which is cumbersome. It generally sometimes it takes like maybe 4 or 5 days for back and forth in Jiras, and then update the metadata across different systems. So we wanna maintain the central repository, DRM or EDM for the metadata management and also the data governance. So consistent management reporting, as I mentioned before. So we want to make sure we have a single source of truth for most of the management reporting. So we don't want users to pull the data using different systems, uh, So consolidations, like we are moving away from the default 7-year-old Oracle consolidations, and we're trying to take all the logic and put it in uh, FCCS. Okay, next slide, Josie. Mhm.
Okay, so interRel was engaged to conduct the first phase, which we're calling the ideation phase for codename Project Safari. I'm not sure I know the background behind Safari. Do you know? Suraj?
It's the system to acquire, forecast, analyze, and report information.
That's correct.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So the scope for Project Safari is a migration of the on-premise footprint of Oracle EPM, which right now includes planning, to the cloud, and the implementation of enterprise data management and financial close and consolidation. So there were key decisions and focus areas that were agreed upon by the Twitter team prior to the kickoff of Project Safari. This included the metadata and hierarchies, architecture and management reporting, strategies for the planning and reporting and close and consolidation groups, as well as a new chart of accounts design, and the technical designs for security and data integrations. The project is divided into two phases. The first being the ideation, which I mentioned, and it includes requirements, design, and prototyping. The main outputs from ideation are approved requirements and design documents, which will provide a high level of confidence in the timeline and the resources needed for the next phase, which is the build phase. We reviewed a few scenarios for this timeline, the first being with starting the build immediately after ideation, which targeted a March 2021 go live for all of the components. Now, we started off with the initial assumption that the ideation would be conducted on site in San Francisco, which is basically how we typically conduct our ideation processes for our other clients. We also looked at a partial go live in September for the major planning components. And then we also looked at a scenario where we would have a partial go live in September, but less consulting in the mix for later phases of planning and reporting, since Twitter has a very capable in-house staff. But this would extend the timeline to about mid-year 2021. And then.
Sure, yeah. And then the global pandemic hits. So the budgets for all the new projects, for including the EPM cloud upgrade, were put on hold. So no one knows what's going on. Like no one knows what the revenue is going to be. So everyone, like it's not just Twitter. All the companies were in that mode. So they were hiring. They were hiring freezes. Like there were layoffs and all of that happening. So but Twitter. So what we decided is basically, so we regrouped with the FPA and the finance, and then thought like, what's the best approach or what's the best next steps for the cloud project and the ERP upgrade project. So for the cloud project, for the ERP project, what we decided is like instead of doing a business transformation, so we descoped all the business transformation, and then we only took the technical upgrade because we have to. So we need to make sure that we have proper licenses or proper support from Oracle for the current version. So we decided we're going to do a in-place upgrade to the next version. And then for EPM, so we were talking to our FPA partners, and then the FPA, so talking about budgets, like what is possible, what is feasible for this year. So, and then we reached out to interRel. So what are the alternate project plans? Like if at all we cannot do this year, like what can we do this year and what cannot, so what we cannot do with this budget that we have. So after having all of these discussions with interRel came up with a different plan, and then we finally agreed upon, I'm going to show what we decided in the next slide, but so we agreed upon, we're going to break out the project into two different things. And so instead of having ideation and then doing a build right after the ideation, we thought like we'll do an ideation and take a break, which we are in right now. And then, so once the economy comes up, and then once we know like what exactly is happening outside and what our revenues are, then we're going to continue with the 2021 build phase. So we decided to move forward with the ideation phase for the EPM project. Like this time we said, like we decided we're going to go full remote. So everyone was ready for it. We have a very good IT team which supported interRel. So in shipping the laptops as soon as possible. So yeah, ultimately we decided we're going to go full remote with the ideation phase. Yeah, next slide, Josie. So this is a modified timeline. So we had this RFP process from starting. We are planning for this from last year, but the actual RFP process started somewhere in Feb. So we were contacting all the vendors and then like getting the codes and everything. So once we are in the middle of RFP process, the virus hit, right? So that's when like we decided, okay, so we're going to do the ideation first, and that's what we did from May to August. So it's 100%, as I mentioned, like it's 100% virtual. So interRel was able to come up with all this like the all design documentation. So they gave us all the required and design documents that we needed to review. And then so we decided we're going to take a break from September to November, or September to somewhat November. So in that phase, like we figured out a couple of things. I'm going to talk about that later. But September to November is ideation phase for interRel. interRel's going to go back, like they'll do some preparation for the implementation, and we'll be back in December. So after December, we're going to start ideation for the PCM, which is profitability and cost management, and then we're going to start our build in 2021. Next slide, Josie. Yep.
Okay, so now we have to deal with the 100% virtual ideation phase. So we really needed to make sure that we had a clear and button-up strategy. This would entail understanding and documenting user requirements, conducting our requirement sessions and best practice workshops for each of the EPM business process areas, especially within data, master data, consolidation, planning, reporting, data integrations, and analytics. We also conducted design sessions and made sure that options are fully explored. We built prototypes and POCs to ensure that the requirement expectations are level set. And then finally, we created implementation plans for both interRel and Twitter resources to execute the designs. The Twitter team identified 5 objectives for the ideation phase. First being define a strategy for a new chart of accounts design, which will balance the level of detail with future reporting needs. Next, determine the design for enterprise data management, which includes identifying sources, target systems, and what hierarchies and dimensions will be maintained in EDM. Next, we had to design a comprehensive management reporting solution that includes best practices for close planning, reporting, and analytics. And then finally, plan a migration strategy for the on-prem solutions to the cloud and incorporate the new functionality and features to hopefully resolve current pain points and extend the business capabilities. There were overarching questions that we needed to address throughout the ideation process. First being the planning cloud rebuild and migration. So these were questions regarding whether to migrate as is or redesign to work with the planning modules, particularly with CapEx and workforce. And then also, what would be the strategy for those custom cubes that Suraj had pointed out, particularly vendor, GL reporting, and effects? You know, would they be part of the same planning application, or would they be freeform, or would we build them in Essbase 19C? And then finally, what other tools can Twitter leverage with the enterprise license that potentially could be game changers for their business process if they were to enable them in this phase? So keeping in mind, or what comes to mind is the strategic modeling, narrative reporting, and also incorporating visualizations. So with each area, options were provided with pros and cons, and so you could see that we, developed several slides with pros and cons, and so these were documented and evaluated with the teams, with each of the streams in the design sessions. We also built several process flows for the proposed processes in each of the work streams. And also we built several prototypes in planning, consolidations, EDM, reporting cubes, and analytics. Being in the cloud, that was actually, it's very easy to prototype, when you're in the cloud. We also created high-level process flows using Lucid charts. And each work stream had a timeline and specific milestones, as well as a schedule for presenting their design prototypes. The project management teams from Twitter and interRel worked together in lockstep and created a project team structure and communication plans so that everyone was clear of the escalation points and who was involved. The project management teams communicated the roles and responsibilities for all of the team members. And so this is basically an example of our roles and responsibilities slate for the different members of the Twitter project team. The PM teams also communicated expectations and also adhered to the meeting cadence for each of the teams. Now, because of the magnitude of the project and the multiple work streams, the extent of the change is potentially pretty great, right? So the ideation process also included a change management strategy. We felt it was crucial for the success of user adoption to include change management disciplines early in the stages of the project. So this is a high level of strategy and deliverables for the change management process over the different stages of the project. So you can see that the change management intervenes at basically all of the major stages throughout the project. And there were also change management roles and responsibilities that were determined and agreed upon between interRel and Twitter.
Yeah, so we were able to successfully complete the ideation phase, and then so these are the tools that we used at Twitter with interRel, like when we are interacting with interRel during this like all remote project, right? So it's really hard for to do this, but we pulled it out. So Google Meet, like Twitter uses all the Google products, like it. So Google Meet is one of the crucial things for us. Like we had this uh, the Google Meet meetings like across all the day. So to be frank, like it took us maybe 5 hours of meetings each day, but so we were able to gather all the requirements along with Twitter. So Slack. So we had like Slack channels for the IT and uh, internal folks. So any kind of questions we just used to like rather than writing emails and everything, we just used to Slack them, and then so they responded pretty quickly. And then Google Docs, sheets and slides, rather than having the Word documents and sheets in Excel and PowerPoint presentations, we use the Google Docs. So the one advantage with this is basically live interaction. So we can tag anyone. So we can tag anyone in the Google Sheets or slides. If at all you have a question, you can just type it there rather than having a back and forth in emails. Right. So version 1, version 2, there is no concept of version 1s and version 2s. Like we just like write it there itself in the Google Docs and Sheets and slides. Yeah. Next slide, Josie. Yep. So what we learned from the project, like what we learned until this point, the ideation phase. So I'm going to walk through like what worked for us and what are the opportunities like where we have to improve going forward, and then so what we will be doing like once we are back in person, right? So what worked is like we at Twitter we have a policy of starting all the meetings after 5 minutes after an hour, rather than having a meeting at 11. We generally schedule it at 11:05 so that like there will be enough time for people to join. So there is always meetings at Twitter, so it's really hard for us to expect everyone to start exactly at that time. So all the meeting starts after 5 minutes. So we use like good use of, as I mentioned before, like Google Meet cameras were on, at least like we were able to see our faces and reactions when Twitter was saying something. So and Slack, again, Slack readily facilitated communications and information transfer. Any files or anything, we would just Slack them rather than emails and writing emails. And then we can just include anyone in a chat conversation in Slack, and then we can just type them in. So collaboration facilitated through Google Docs. Again, it's a live interaction in Google Docs. You can tag anyone. So even if they don't have access, they can just do comment access. They can give their views. If you don't agree with some of the things that are written in the document, you can just suggest like what changes need to be done rather than writing an email. So this was really helpful to finish the project in time. So, and then, as I said before, we had a really good IT team. So as soon as we knew that it's going to be a full remote project, so we took all the measures to ship the laptops to interRel as soon as possible, so that they can start working on it rather than working on their laptops. I know it was a bit hard for them to start with Macs. I know like Hyperion world, everyone starts with Windows laptops, but interRel somehow managed it. Uh,
It was a learning process for sure for a lot of us. Yeah.
Regular cadence between Twitter engineers and interRel. So we had this alternate days, like we were meeting with interRel, Josie, Tracy, and other developers. So we were giving a lot of insights in how we build it, how we customize our whole cubes, so that before even going into the discussions with the users, like they'll have a clear background of why exactly it's done that way. So rather than going into the meeting and then having a technical discussion in front of the users, might like bore them. So that's the reason we said like maybe we'll do a different technical discussions between Twitter engineers and interRel rather than discussing these things in the actual user meetings. So project management support from both sides, like we had a good project management team, even on the Twitter side. So there was constant interaction between the project management teams from our side and interRel side. So like this kept us organized and prepared for upcoming milestones. So, and now coming to the opportunities for improvement, yes, like each project have its some of like things which don't go well, but like yeah, we are positive that we're gonna overcome going forward. Some of those opportunities are so basically sometimes it's overwhelming to have like 5 or 6 meetings in a day, like continuous meetings. So sometimes like we miss some of the correct people, and then so we just have to include correct people to take correct decisions in the meeting. Sometimes like we missed it, so we had to again like we had to do the whole session again with new set of audience. So which was a time consuming in the amount of time that we were given for the ideation phase. So yeah, that's one thing we want to improve going forward. And then yeah, as everyone faces this even in normal life, being totally remote, like you'll miss those informal interactions. Like somehow we did it. So we did like for the first 5 minutes, we just started with informal interactions. How is it going? What did you did? Like all that. Like it's necessary in this new world. So we just like did it. So but still there is some part that's missing as part of the uh, total remote. So and then so what we're gonna do after getting back in person. So we want to do regular build checks with key users during development. So what Twitter does is whenever we have any big projects like this, we don't involve all the 200 users into the project. We call someone called DRIs. We assign additional roles and responsibilities for those DRIs to be involved in the project. So anyone like we just build a core team for the project and then we involve them in any kind of decision making. So they're going to take decision for their users or for their team. So we're going to check with them every 2 weeks or every 1 week, all what are the new advancements in the development. So scheduling meetings. So one more thing is scheduling meetings. Like we are pre-planned with the meetings. Like we want to plan at least like 1 week in advance rather than like 1 hour before the meeting. So this is so because the users will be busy with their own close cycles and forecasts. We just want to at least give 1 week in advance so that like we can have healthy participation in the meetings. And so we also do this record sessions. So any decision like even if you don't note them or write them in paper, we can just like record. We can go back to the recorded sessions from the meetings, and then interRel can refer to those when building the project. We do have all our sessions recorded right now in the ideation phase, so that like once we go into the build phase, they'll be handy to build the project. So and then change management. So yeah, that plays a pivot role in the project success. So we want to make sure that so we want to involve change management to ensure that there is a good user adoption for the cloud. Okay, next slide. Josie. So what do you need for 100% virtual project? Like we need like focused and engaged teams in on both parties. It's not just the client it's not just the consulting firm. So we need someone like focused and engaged on both the sides, so that like so response, like we have to respond as soon as you can. So that's one thing which we observed. So daily check-ins for the core team, yes, like that's really important because we need to know what exactly is going on. So if at all there are any escalations which we think need to be addressed as soon as possible, we have to do that. So that's the reason we had this daily check-ins for the core team on both the sides, and then strong project management team on both the sides. So with a project of this scale, a strong project management team is really necessary for the success of the project. So that's one thing that we learned from the fully remote projects. Yep. So where we are today and what we are doing right now. So as I mentioned before, I just gave you a background of what exactly we are doing. Like, let's talk about what we are doing for the hibernation period, right? So interRel left in August, and then they're going to be back sometime in December. So before interRel left, so we were kind of thinking about all the new use cases, that is the PCM. So we have a really good use case for the PCM. So we thought like maybe we have to include interRel to give us a demo on the PCM, so which is profitability and cost management. And also like strategic purpose planning. So interRel also give us a demo on. So we are still taking a decision on whether we should go with this with the strategic purpose planning. And then, so hibernation period, like what we did on our side is basically we are trying to work with our internal partners. So one of the example is we are trying to find out the integration strategy, because of we are bringing in EDM CS, it's gonna be a single source of. So it'll be. Hear me?
We lost you for a second. Suarez,
Yeah.
are you there?
Yeah, I think I'm getting. But yeah, can you hear me now?
We
Yes.
can now, yeah. So, but maybe backtrack the last 30 seconds.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So during the hibernation period, like we are doing our own research because the cloud is new to us. So we know that we went to Arcs, but so this is a much bigger shift for us from on-prem to cloud. So what we are doing during the hibernation period is we are bringing in EDMCS, which is going to open up the gates for all the metadata requests from different sources, different targets in our Twitter. So we are thinking maybe what is the best possible integration solution. So whether we should use a third-party tool like OneCloud, or so Twitter already invested a lot in MuleSoft. So we are thinking maybe MuleSoft, can we do a POC with MuleSoft? Let's see like if it works or not, or then we just have to go with EPM Automate or the EPM agent. That's one thing which we are doing right now. So which we are doing as part of the hibernation. And one more thing that we are doing is, this is all internal tasks that we are doing as part of hibernation. So is OKTA security planning. So we wanna take everything behind OKTA and SailPoint. So we don't want the request to be coming directly to the admins or anything. Everything should be automated. So we are working with our internal teams to make sure. So we had a matrix of all the groups that we needed and everything. So it's already sorted out, and then we are sending that list for the development for the Okta team. So that's one more thing that we are working on. And as I mentioned before, we are moving away from the third party hosting services, because right now all our Windows servers are hosted by a third party. So once we move to cloud, there is no need of those servers, and then we only need one server, Windows server, for our EPM agent. So we decided to move that server onto the Twitter network so that it will be easy for us for future integrations. So that's one more thing that we are doing. And also we are doing research on how we can connect the EPM agent, which is new with which is pretty new. So with all the in-house data sources, like all the relational data sources, how can we connect that? So that's what. So this is good actually in the hibernation period. Like we were able to do a lot of stuff. So if at all like this happened during the build phase, this would have impacted some of the timelines, because there is a lot of back and forth going on between the internal teams. So this 3 or 4 months, like we used the most of it. Like we just like did a lot of stuff during this 3 or 4 months. Actually, we didn't lose the 4 months, but we did pretty good things internally with all the integrations and the security. So once we come back in December, so Intel is going to do a uh, ideation phase on profitability and cost management in December. So that's on cards. So they're going to be back somewhere in December. They're going to do the PCM ideation, and then we're going to start the build in Jan 21. The ideal case is to go live somewhere in August or September. So yeah, we are targeting for that. Okay, so next slide. Yep, I think that's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, we're at the Q&A section right now. So if you have any questions, please put it down in the Q&A box. Right now, I don't see any questions.
So I have a question for you, Swaraj. What are you most excited about in the cloud and getting to the cloud? Yeah, what are you most excited about?
The most excited part is, so we want to, like, there are a lot of stuff that we want to automate. So because of continuous projects like Twitter, how we do is like all the development and everything is agile. So we just, so as soon as we move from one project to other project, all the enhancements, everything is agile. Like we hardly find time to take a step back and then do all this like new stuff, integrations, like all of that. So one thing I'm really excited is, so because we are moving to cloud, so we want to revamp or we want to rethink all these integrations, right? So like we want to exclude all the manual work so that we are doing right now, and also like and one more thing which I'm excited about is all the new features in cloud, right? We have been on this uh, on-prem for what, like 6 years from now. So we had like previous so yeah, so that's one thing that I'm excited about. Yep. And then and also FCC. So we want to see like FCC to overcome all the issues that we're having during the close. And one more thing is like we want to bring down the close time. So instead of 10 days, like we want to bring it down at least to 5 days. So to avoid all the manual process, we have to like educate our users like who are on Oracle systems to make sure so we can automate most of their validations that they're doing. And then so I'm also excited about they using the smart view, right? They never got a chance to use the smart view, right? So on the, at least the financial users on the finance side, FP users are pretty much like really confident on smart view. But so once they see the smart view, I think they're going to really like what exactly can be done using the EPM applications. So that's, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
I agree. It is all really exciting.
Yeah, lots of things to be excited about for sure.
Good.
Okay, well, if we don't have any further questions, I think we're good to wrap up. Thank you so much, Suraj, for sharing your lessons learned and your journey with us, and have
taking
a great
time with a new baby. So that is the other thing.
Absolutely,
that is
yes.
so
He just had a new baby last week. So yeah, so that is
double thank you.
Oh my God, double thank you for taking the time.